Sure.
Hi, everyone who's joining in. A very good afternoon again. Hello there, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to TeamLead's digital webinar. Okay, we have still some joining, maybe a few more seconds. Hi there, good afternoon. Okay, great. Let's begin. Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, and welcome to TeamLead's digital webinar. Yet another episode where we bring together delegates, leaders, and thought audiences to share their views and experiences across various topics. Our today's topic is very interesting, controversial, and talk of the town. We are going to speak about the BFSI industry, one of the fastest growing and one of the most pivotal force towards the growth story for India. Our topic for today is BFSI, fueling the growth of India's tech workforce. We have eminent leaders today joining us for the webinar. Let us quickly speak about what this sector is contributing and what would be the takeaway for today's webinar. With rapid digitization and technological advancements reshaping India's landscape, BFSI has emerged as a major contributor to fuel the demand for skilled professionals. Various digital technologies and innovative fintech solutions to robust security measures, the BFSI sector is continuously driving the need for a dynamic, adaptable workforce capable of harnessing the power of technology, not only to meet the consumer demand within India, but while we are actually offshoring talent to the rest of the world. One of the key drivers to meet the evolving consumer demand and the regulatory requirements, India's digital transformation journey is fueled by BFSI towards economic growth and also serving as a catalyst for expanding the nation's pool of tech talent, thereby shaping the future of India's workforce. Be it the BFSI customer service engagement, the digital payments engagement, or the new world of GCCs. We are here constantly evolving, yet confused about how the future of workforce and the world in India would be. Let's hear from our guests today who are experienced and veterans from the industry to share their views and thought leadership. Please join me in welcoming our first guest for today, Mr. Rupesh Goyal, Managing Director, Head of Credit Administration, Silicon Valley Bank India, Global Services. Welcome, Rupesh.
Thank you very much, Monira and team leads. Appreciate that.
Rupesh is a reputed thought leader and an advocate for the power of startups to transform industries and communities. Currently, heading as the MD of Silicon Valley Bank India, he is responsible to drive the corporate credit function for India, and while being an integral part of the global delivery strategy team. As a dedicated expert, mentor, and advisor, he has guided numerous emerging entrepreneurs through the challenges of early stage development. We are happy to have you, Rupesh, today with us.
Thank you. Pleasure is all mine, Monira.
Let us please welcome Mr. Rahul Adhav, Head of Engineering, Rupee. Welcome, Rahul. Happy to have you today.
Thank you, Marina. Thank you.
Rahul is a veteran with technology leadership and a rich and diversified experience with more than a track record of a decade and a half in building and growing startups. He has led organizations on a journey of adopting emerging technologies in the field of AI, blockchain, metaverse, data science, all those heavy terminologies. He brings along a decade of leadership, excellence, and experience at conceptualizing and launching technology products and service businesses in India and across the globe. Rahul, we are eager to hear immense words from your end.
Yeah, looking forward. Thank you.
Joining us, we have Juhi Singh, AVP HR, Max Life Insurance. Juhi heads the HR function at Max Life Insurance Company, and she's responsible for driving the leadership hiring portfolio for the country today. In addition, she's also responsible for multiple projects on digital transformation, capability building, audit, compliance, and talent acquisition. She's a strategic and innovative HR professional who's been translating business vision into HR initiatives that improve the performance, profitability, growth, and employee engagement. She believes in empowering more women leaders and top executives with her own unique perspective. Welcome, Juhi. Happy to have you with us.
Thank you, Manira. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone.
Great. So let's begin, Juhi, from you and ladies first. So could you please help us and set the context of why BFSI industry today is speaking about the rise in tech talent?
Sure. As you have already discussed, and I think that was quite an enlightening topic, how BFSI is actually growing up year on year. The CAGR percentage, if you see it, is actually on the rising trend. And corresponding to that, it's also giving us a lot of opportunity to keep on fueling the right talent into the sector. And when we are looking at the right talent, let's probably talk about how the banking used to be about 10 years back and maybe a decade back. The banking sector earlier used to be having a lot of manual interventions. You had cashiers, you had people making drafts, check drafts, and everything. It was all manual that we were experiencing. And look at banking now. Today, banking is about faceless transactions. The role of technology and digital has brought so much of changes in the overall experience piece when it comes to banking, insurance, any of the fintech organizations as well. So the technology has been the way of working now for all of us, including me in insurance. The way I see technology and artificial intelligence, for that matter, has become an important and integral, I would say, a staple food for us now, looking at each and every talent that we are looking at right now.
Absolutely. I think you made a very interesting point about, what was banking then and what is banking today. And while that question will take us to our skill gap aspect, however, I'll pause there and I'll quickly go to Rupesh. Rupesh, understanding from you, the evolving technology in the BFSI tech sector, particularly in two areas. One, the workforce management and the skill development. What are your thoughts about, the rise and the immense dynamic variations in both these aspects?
Sure. And Juhi brought a really good point in terms of, the lines are very quickly blurring between what is known as conventional and modern, also, and therefore tech and non-tech. I think the way BFSI and banks particularly sort of see themselves more as at a cusp of technology and non-technology. Earlier, there was a very clear demarcation in terms of these are conventional non-tech roles and tech roles. Now, a lot of the organizations in the entire BFSI sector is focused on seamless customer experience. So the customer is at the end and the center of it. And therefore, the delivery method or the skill set doesn't really matter as long as we are meeting organizational, industry, and all of those goals, right? So, and if I were to break it down into broadly three aspects, right, which is driving this blurring of lines. One is customer, I just spoke about. The other is regulation. Banking particularly is a heavily regularized sector, which means world over regulators are sort of demanding a lot of things day in and day out from banks. Therefore, that line is really blurring between tech and non-tech in terms of responding to those regulator needs. And third, interestingly, is competition. Banks for a really long time did not face a lot of competition. Thanks to technology, a lot of that competition is out there through fintech, startups, new age organizations in pretty much every single area of banking that you can think of. Right from sort of deposits to the other side in terms of the credit and loans all of that, right? So I think all those three things are really blurring the gap. So when I'm, for example, are looking for people, I'm not looking for people from a tech or a non-tech. What I am looking for people is with that mindset that they know how to solve a problem, right? And some of this is a sort of a mixture of both tech and non-tech, right? Gone are the days when somebody can have pure tech skill and still thrive, because landscape is changing, and so goes for the non-tech part of it, right? And therefore somebody needs to have a really, or a person needs to have a really good understanding of both the areas, so they are really thinking of the end problem and customer and the solution from a holistic perspective rather than just what's on my plate. Hope this helps clear some of the things for audience, please.
No, absolutely. And I think both you and Juhi made a very impactful point. And it took me back to the days, when I would go to the bank with my grandfather those days, and bank was considered nothing less than a god, at that point in time, where you are expected to, do a few things in a particular manner. And, the way people would maintain and keep their passbooks or maintain and keep their
Right.
documents. And today it's like the bank is at my doorstep. The transition is that huge. So I think you spoke about a valid point about the competition in this sector, which is one of the very impactful driving forces for growth in workforce management. Having said that, then I would like to know from Rahul. Rahul, being the head of engineering, I'm sure you would have hired people then, and you've been hiring people today, and you'll hire people tomorrow. Which are the massive changes in jobs, or rather, what kind of jobs have changed or evolved in the decade now and the decade then?
Sure. Thanks, Nilita. Juhi mentioned about the traditional way banks have been operating, right? And Rupesh came up with the idea of how the landscape is changing gradually. Similarly, to enable both these things, like from moving from the traditional journey towards an open architecture, kind of an open model, where there is a lot of financial inclusion, there is a mobilization of most of the population towards utilizing the fintech services, right? For this, there has been a growth in the requirement of technology talent, and at the same time increasing the efficiency of this technology talent, right? For this, the major sectors from a technology point of view, which has seen growth, are data analysis,
Mhm.
artificial intelligence, uh, compare your regulatory changes, and basically related to the cloud computing. Okay,
Absolutely.
these are some of the fields where the technology talent needs to be upskilled or reskilled so that we are able to roll out new things faster and able to reach as many people as possible.
Perfect. You made an interesting point about, data and AI and how these roles are upskilled. Approximately, what percentage of population you think really is possible to get upskilled for these roles from the existing talent pool that is employed within the BFSI sector?
Sure. So if you look at the BFSI sector, it has been traditionally about legacy technologies.
Mm-hmm.
There is a fixed set of framework which has been continuously utilized in this
Right.
context. The mid-career professionals that are available in these sectors, they are resistant to change, right? So investing in the proper training technologies, infrastructure, right, and expecting the return on those investments is
Right.
something quite crucial for organization, right? So when we look at this particular perspective, from a percentage point of view, I would say hardly uh, 60 to 65% of the population of the current tech talent needs upskilling or reskilling at this, because it has been
Okay.
in the near 2 to 3 years that a lot of new technologies have emerged, and every now and then there are new technological advances happening. So a continuous learning is something which is required to be implemented for the tech workforce.
Absolutely, I agree. And interestingly, I'd like to know from Juhi, considering that you hail from fast-moving BFSI sub-segments, where products change quite a lot, or services need to be constantly upgraded. How do you think that today organizations are able to, put across a training or a retention or an upskilling program, for this percentage of people? Is it really happening, or rather there is an attempt made to make it happen? I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Sure. I think the roles like in fact Rahul also mentioned there are requirements for the AI roles, the tech roles, and these are ever evolving roles. What I needed about 2 years back from a role and skill standpoint, I might not need it right now. So the roles are evolving, the technological asks are evolving, and so is our need more from a talent attraction or talent management is also. The asks are changing, ever changing. It's as changing as on yesterday.
Yeah.
So more from, in fact, from a talent. So now we don't call ourselves at a talent acquisition. We have now become a talent advisors who's not just responsible for attraction of talent, but
Yeah.
also ensure there is a mobility which is happening inside the organization. We need to cross train our resources in the organization. We have to upskill, cross skill, and hence the L&D intervention, which is learning and
Mhm.
development interventions, becomes a fundamental need of the hour, right?
True.
And there were the times that we were relying heavily on learning management systems. They had a scale, and now it is a time to evolve ourselves from LMSs to LXPs, which is more experiential based
Yeah.
learning
Absolutely.
solutions, which is also ensuring that people that we are trying to target from skilling them, reskilling them, or upskilling are being adaptable, are feeling attracted to the courses, and are getting an experience when they are learning. So that it's an outcome driven experience solutions that we are trying to look at. So if you look at the entire thing, it's very important that today generation realizes the need for LXPs instead of
Yeah.
again going back to your LMSs. So I think that's how we as an organizations are taking our baby steps towards reskilling and upskilling of our current talent and workforce.
Interesting, interesting. I'd like to know from Rupesh, since both the speakers spoke about the upskilling and retention, what is typically a time period that BFSI as an industry may allow for upskilling or reskilling, both at the lateral level or at the entry level, considering that in this sector, the ROI needs to be really quick. We do not have time like a traditional engineering sector to say that the product is at a development stage, at a design stage, and then we look at a testing stage. We don't have time is what my basic understanding. Think that the time given or invested, you can expect ROIs, and from an employee's point of view, is that really happening? Do you see that change?
No, that's a really interesting question. And if you were to ask me, I would say the reskilling should have happened yesterday. So
Right.
every single hour or time that goes in it is an element which does impact
Mm-hmm.
bank ROI and ability to service its customers. But I
Yes.
think what's if we take it back, right, that at an individual level, right, we've been talking about, for example, IQ and EQ, right? This is an age of being LQ,
Yeah.
right? Learning quotient,
Right.
right? The way for adaptability and a lifelong learner, right? I can't think about skilling or reskilling
Yeah.
at the time when I'm required to do that. I need to start that early on so that when the time comes, I'm sort of almost prepared for it, right? The time is there where the organizations, individuals have to think like that, right? Even organizations. So if we know there is something which is happening, either from a technology, competition, or regulatory, we start ahead. We don't start, for example, when a regulator tells us to do something, then it's already too late, right? The normal skilling, reskilling could range from anything between like 4 weeks to a year. And that's a huge time gap, right? For anyone or an organization to do. So I would urge the audience as well, and I talk to a lot of youngsters in colleges also. And this is my really so we know something, but we know things are changing at a rapid pace. And I'll give you an example of that in a while. But that is also that requires individuals to be more adaptable, to work on their LQ and start working and learning new things, different things, diverse adaptability before the organization or the industry demands that. And the example I was referring to, and Rahul touched upon it, is in cloud. And I was sort of chuckling within when he used the word. There were times, guys, when banks said no to clouds,
True.
primarily because the data is so secret. They
Yes.
didn't want to put anything on cloud. And pretty much every single global bank had a very clear guideline that they would not adopt any system, practice, or policy which puts data on cloud, right? Cut
Right.
to today's age where this is not even an option, or this is not even a point of talking. And this is a shift, and this is a shift driven by all those things that I talked about earlier. But what this also means, right? So we of course need skilled tech cloud engineers, but we also need people at diverse roles, right from bottom to the top of the bank, to understand cloud and cloud strategy and how it impacts, right? So it's an interesting bit in terms of people of my experience, higher than me, lower than me. We all have to learn that landscape, and therefore that learning quotient is extremely important. My organization is not going to ask me and say, Rupesh, you take a week off and okay, now learn about cloud. I have to do it on the fly, and so does everyone else, right? That's sort of a longish answer to your question, Munira.
Absolutely. No, I think that's perfect. In fact, I wanted to ask all my three guests, on the dais today. Like many Indians, I always wanted a bank job, and those having a bank job was supposed to be, a great tag on your career in terms of you're set. That's how it used to be. Today, we have two problems in this industry, as per what the market says: talent attraction and the talent demand gap. Why do you think both of these exist? And it is expected to rise by 3x. You know. So, one, why do we still have a talent attraction problem? If we have, we'll talk about retention a bit later, because then that's again in pockets. But your attraction of talent today with the BFSI as an industry, and the talent gap, rather the demand versus supply gap, is constantly rising. So I'd like to hear, since Rupesh, you're talking to you, your thoughts on this, and then I'd like to have Rahul and Juhi also add to the points.
Sure. No, I think that's a great question, Munira. And I think if we were to sort of divide it into two parts, one is sort of the front ending of the banking, right? In the banking centers and branches, that's a different scenario than a GCC sort of a landscape, right? Where the skill demand is quite different from being in the front side of the bank, if you will, right? In the first one, I think one thing which has changed a lot is also the role profile. Nobody, like Juhi, I think, mentioned about being a teller or a cashier at the brand. The roles are not as clear anymore, right? The person has to do pretty much everything, right? They have to take care of the clearinghouse. They have to take care of selling the loans as well, and insurance products and whatnot, right? So I think what we figured out, and usually when we go out in the market and hire people, and as you rightly said at the start, Munira, is people have sort of a set notion that when I go to bank, I have a set of responsibility. It's a 9 to 5 job, and that's
Still
it, right?
exist? That notion still exists?
I think it does, and some of this is also driven by what youngsters are hearing from their home, maybe their
True.
parents or their
Yeah.
grandparents. So
Yeah.
that's what they think about banking. A
Mhm.
lot of people sort of apply to banking thinking that it's a cozy, cushy job. You don't have to work hard. I don't have to go to the field and all of that sort of stuff.
True.
So that's one thing that I think a lot of banks, when they hire sort of youngsters from 0 to 4 years of experience, is a big problem. In the GCCs, it's a slightly different issue. One is
Mhm.
in terms of, and that is true for I think pretty much all of the industries, specifically in India and a lot of other countries as well, is the gap between what they are taught or experienced in their colleges to what is expected in the workplace. So the way I would say it, and Rahul maybe stealing from tech, is plug and play. So there are no such thing, and there is a lot of effort organizations have to put in
Yeah.
to make people truly workable. And I think that huge gap in terms of what they are taught or what they're experiencing in their colleges and universities and what's expected of them, there is still a huge gap. So, and I wouldn't necessarily call it from a banking perspective, but I would say across the industries,
Of the industry.
I've seen a huge perspective and gap. And I think the answer to that question is more industry and academia collaboration is
Yes.
where and I think a lot of firms, a lot of organizations are working towards it, but that is definitely an area which requires massive warlike effort to
Yeah,
reduce. We find it substantially, and I'll end just with saying it's not just hard skills, but so-called soft skills, which I think, in my mind, are far more important.
right.
When we go to a lot of maybe developed countries, what we do not find is a gap on soft skills. We find gap on hard skills.
True.
In the developing nations, it's the other way around.
Other way
People
around.
are good at doing stuff, they know how to learn, but what they lack is the softer parts of the skill, which is
Absolutely.
equally in demand in pretty much all of the industries.
No, I completely agree with you, and you made a very valid point about saying that how it's not about how the industry, but largely how the entire socio-economic workforce is getting ready for future. Juhi, let's hear from you. On the same concept, do you face talent attraction a larger problem as compared to talent retention in these days currently?
I think the entire BFSI faces both the problems
Mhm.
predominantly, the retention as well as attraction.
Okay.
More to do with the kind of people we want to hire in our current interfaces, right? Looking at the new age requirements that we have, more it's going to be more towards skill based. Okay? No longer it's going to be a traditional, and that's what Rupesh beautifully covered in his point. Our
Absolutely.
education system, the qualification, the courses are yet to be aligned to the role mapping and the skill-based requirements that we have in our current organization. And they both have to talk to each other. So more from an attraction standpoint, yes, BFSI and organization like ours still are facing a challenge because our requirement is more towards AI, machine learning, blockchain experts, or the tech or digital roles. So those folks will continue to enjoy and they have a comfort zone of being there in that industry. For them, experimenting with the other industry, maybe in BFSI, would be something that they would not want to opt as the first option, right?
True.
It would we have to come with better talent attraction strategy, more from overall employee value proposition. So we have to work additional mile, we have to walk additional step in order to attract the same talent, maybe in terms of compensation, maybe in terms of employee value propositions. So the overall packaging that we do, we have to do one notch above than the current tech industry maybe, just to ensure we have better attraction of talent, specifically in from the tech world. So that's how we leverage ourselves with the current inputs that we have from our organization. So attraction, yes, is a challenge. But yes, the BFSI sector, as well as the organization that I come from, we are investing a lot ourselves in terms of branding, rebranding, calling ourselves a new age organizations, and ensuring there is a great employee value propositions that we can offer.
Yeah, interesting. Rahul, same point, but a little, addition to a point saying that we are talking about collaboration between the education system and the industry segments. While I know that many automotive industries, or rather the current EV sector, manufacturing to a certain extent, or rather the IT segments are working towards this. How is the BFSI sector shaped? Do you see already there's some sort of collaboration? Can you enlighten us whether this is already happening, to what extent it is happening, and where do you think it should actually head to, considering that you will need to, or all of us will need to invest in a lot of technological skill set, which is why today our STEM participation ratio is amongst the highest, but our STEM employability ratio drastically drops. So some thoughts from you.
Sure. So, like Rupesh mentioned, this particular sector, right? Uh, the technological advances that are happening, okay? To be honest, the requirement in the BFSI for the kind of skills,
Mhm.
it is quite specialized because our requirement from a technology perspective, our requirement from a regulatory perspective are specific to this particular sector. We need people who understand this thing. And when it comes to tools and technologies, like they need to be proficient in skills like DevOps, skills like DevSecOps, understanding of the regulatory requirements, understanding of how data has to be analyzed, how data models need to be created, right? These are some of the skill sets which are required from the upcoming tech talent. Okay? Uh, Getting this from the new age or the new entrants is quite difficult. And from the mid-career professionals, which are already attached or already working with us from a long duration. These people, as I said, are resistant to change. So nowadays, what is happening? Like to shorten the period of skilling or of skilling, right? many edutechs are coming up with programs which are
Mm-hmm.
tailor-made for the implementation of a particular project. Like in today's case, everyone must be aware about Jenny. Right?
Right.
Whenever a particular organization, a BFSI, wants to implement a particular use case, what they prefer to do is approach an edtech company, create a tailor-made program which will address that particular project implementation and skill the people in that particular requirement. That way, we are able to reduce the skilling duration from a
Right.
few years to a few months.
Absolutely. That makes it interesting. Also to understand from you, Rahul, if I am already a employed personnel within the BFSI as a sector, I am facing a talent war between the traditional BFSI organizations, the new ecosystems and the startups within the BFSI sector, and the GCCs. How do I make a choice for an ideal sector, let's not say an ideal employer, but for the ideal sector for growth, or rather, which are the areas I should consider, while I apply? That's one question. And the second flip side is that from organization standpoint, while we are facing external challenges of attracting talent, is this also one of the reasons of like that so many elements to this that we are already fighting the talent war between amongst us only?
Exactly true. So to answer your question, I guess that there are different stages of career for any tech entrant. Like there is entry level candidates, there are mid career, there are people who are already at the management level, and then people who are kind of at an architect level. So gradually, if you see the ecosystem in India, it is made up of more of startups, new age fintechs, and then there are the traditional banking institutions. Uh, Bridging the gap between these two is something wherein people need to have that particular expertise. They need to understand the old technologies as well as the new emerging technologies. Right? Plugging this gap is quite, I would say, standing requirement. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, if you see, because of the digital public infrastructure initiatives which are being taking up in not only in India across the globe, India is a very good example. Of it, right? Understanding of this new infrastructure initiatives by the government made for the financial inclusion, and then skilling yourself to be able to participate in those particular changes is something which the candidates need to understand whenever they are looking for a change or they are looking for applying as a career perspective, right? As an entrant, for us, when we are hiring, for us, it is more important that the candidate has good foundational skills. They are good at creating algorithms. They are good at statistics. They are good with soft skills. They have a good problem solving ability. Okay, that is something which is necessary because what we understand is technology is continuously changing now. We can't stick to a particular technology solution. But having this foundational skills makes the candidate much more adaptable to the coming changes.
I agree. I agree. Julie, what are your thoughts on the same point? While I'd also like to understand that, being into the sector for financial services for a long time, what are some of the problems that this sector is expected to face, 5 years down the line in terms of the talent war that we are having? One, we have the entry level workforce entering and constantly awaiting for opportunities. At the same time, we have our lateral existing employees, and we are in a cusp of building an inclusive work culture. But you have the Gen Z and the millennials entering who have conditions applied: work from home, 4 days a week work. For them, I don't think how many of our youngsters would have visited banks. I mean, for us, it was like a condition. I mean, my parents would have put a condition that you have to go to the bank once a week and, make sure that you are with the teller there and the cashier there and understand. I don't think today our children got these opportunities. For them, banking is at the click of the button, apps available from all the different financial institutions. So, having said that done, isn't it difficult for organizations to kind of one, balance the new ecosystem entering to the workforce, however, dealing with the lateral workforce and creating a blend?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, this entire talent management, if I look at it is not just between the organization in
Hmm?
BFSI or between the industries within BFSI or elsewhere. I look at my organization, I see a talent war within the organization itself.
Interesting.
There is there is so there are some I would call them vanilla profiles, with what we call a
Right.
basic sales, a frontline sales. I
Absolutely.
am operating at a scale of 21,000 plus employees in my organization. About 85% of them are my FOS, which is feet on streets. So one sales skill, energetic, enthusiastic salesperson is being employed within my organization in 8 different channels. So there is a war within the organization in different channels in looking at the right talent for a sales workforce. So this entire talent war will continue to happen, and in fact, I see a lot of attrition also happening within the insurance and organization. They keep on hovering around the same talent back and forth, right?
True.
So this will continue to happen. What we do as an organization, and when we are trying to deal with our Gen X, Gen Zs, and Ys, and millennials, what is very important is what kind of ecosystem we are trying to create. Today, it's not just about compensation when you are looking at an employee value proposition. It is about the overall well-being. It's about wellness has come out as an important topic.
True.
When it comes to wellness, it's not just your physical wellness, it's about your social, emotional,
Yeah.
and physical as well.
And I
And of
think the
course,
government is
financial.
also doing a lot to support the overall wellness of Indians as such, and a lot of incentives and policies are being designed towards that.
Exactly. Exactly. So the wellness is coming into play, which is also taking care of the flexibility element, which is the ask of today's generation. That am I being flexible when it comes to the choosing of a shift, or if I want to choose a hybrid model or work from home model, because different strokes serves different folks. So you can't have the same things applied to all. So we all have to cater it to all of it, and that's why we create our wellness program, which is all inclusive, which is catering to everyone's ask, and creating a process and policies around it, so that the entire ecosystem of different generations can work together, and we have been able to take care of each and everyone's need as far as possible, and ensuring that there is a different stroke for different folks. So wellness is coming out to be a very important criteria when you want to ensure your talent is retained in the organization, and it is not just the compensation which is going to work for longer. So that's how I see it.
True, interesting. Let's understand from Rupesh a little bit more about GCCs. I mean, if we don't, we'll do an injustice to the entire webinar if we don't include GCCs in our conversation, Rupesh. And who better than you can speak about this? I think we are seeing the enormous rise of GCCs within this sector alone, right? And I think it is expected to grow at a two-digit growth in the coming years. However, what is one of the challenges that we have seen is that already the sector has been struggling with the aspect of talent attraction, largely at the entry level, while the GCCs and BFSI, always wanted to hire a plug and play aspect. But looking at the skill gap area, we will also see GCCs now entering into hiring a lot of fresher talent workforce at the entry level. How and why do you think that this problem we will be able to resolve from an country level aspect of GCCs? Also, another problem being that while the BFSI sector is more metro dominated today, which means we see a lot of segment happening in Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, GCCs in these sectors are opting for more cities and locations which are close proximity to colleges, universities, that STEM talent availability. So is that going to create a rift between the talent attraction for these two segments? I mean, what are your thoughts about it?
Sure. No, I think that's a very, very important point these days. But one of the first things I want to clarify is that competition is good, right? So yes, there is a talent war within outside organizations, industries, and all of that. While as an organization, you can be on either end of the stick in certain situations, but I think the talent war is good. One, because I think this helps grow the cake, so to say, right? There is a greater awareness. Again, we say social media is bad, but there are, I think, some good parts to it, and one of which is awareness. So people know about AI. You do not even have to wait for like a minute to know what's happening, right? Your Twitter is full of whatever new stuff which comes in, right? Every single day. So there is a greater awareness. People know what to focus on and stuff like that. So I think that is very good generally for the industry. And the other is point you mentioned, Munira, is about tier two and tier three. And I think that is also an example of that all organizations want to grow bigger and don't want to restrict themselves to just a few handful of cities that we used to do it earlier. And again, thanks to the work from home or hybrid model due to COVID, also advancement of technology and and digital infrastructure, it doesn't really matter if the person now sits in the office or is sitting 600 kilometers away from the office, right?
Right.
As long as the work gets done, yes, there are some aspects to it which does impact or bother organizations and individuals per se. But broadly, I think that is a good thing in that sense that it sort of enhances the talent pool. And one of the things we as organizations or me as a hiring manager, I've noticed is a lot of people who come from tier two or tier three cities maybe have a and I don't want to sort of just typecast it, but I've seen them more hunger primarily because they want to succeed. They know that they are starting like with a handicap, so that
Right.
they are sort of wants to cover for it. They're willing to work hard. Some of the stuff that you just spoke about, right? Maybe some of that entitlement mentality or thinking, right? These are sort of given is probably not necessarily felt by folks coming from tier two and tier three cities. And that brings in a breath of fresh air, even in office. And I'm sure Juhi and Rahul will agree to this. When people sort of brush shoulders with them, they see a suddenly a very hardworking employee who wants to work hard, wants to know more, wants to learn more, and all of that. And it does impact others as well, right, in a positive way, which I think is a great thing. So I would say overall this is good. Now, from a GCC perspective, I think one of the three big things that you would look at from a GCC outsourcing and offshoring market is, again, from an India perspective, is pool of talent. That is still aside labor arbitrage is still the most attractive part of India, being
Right.
the powerhouse of GCC. The other is on the business infrastructure, right? Whether we call it tech parks or SEZ parks, which has world-class facilities, digital infrastructure, even support from government, right? Central, state, everybody wants to woo that, right? With tech soaps and all the other like single window clearances and stuff like that. And also I think the reputation which India and this industry enjoys in the world, there is this long-standing reputation which helps us a lot in this space. And why am I referring to all of this is primarily because you spoke about double-digit growth of GCCs, and despite the headwinds from a world economy perspective, we're still seeing this grow. We've seen this grow even during the COVID and especially post-COVID as well. And primarily because of those three or four things that I did speak about. So there is a lot of, and earlier it's only the big banks, what we call category 1, 2, and 3 banks, but it's now 4, 5, and 6 as well, right? Those are very interested in setting up shops. They see that the value is beyond the scale. It's the other talent that they're talking about. If banks tomorrow have to if they have to be really competitive, work on digitalization, they cannot ignore India and the India talent pool that it offers. And I think that's a fabulous opportunity for our workforce and for the youngsters who wants to be part of the workforce, is that the opportunities are huge. They are only growing at a really rapid pace. There may be some short-term blip here and there, but generally, if you see it a lot larger, I see a huge set of opportunities and I'll close with saying this, that earlier we were talking about talent attraction. Talent attraction is not in numbers, right? If I advertise a position, I get hundreds of profiles and applicants for it. It's figuring out the right people, right? So it isn't dearth of people, it's not dearth of jobs. I think there are a lot. I would just urge the audience to focus on some of those things, and the opportunities are immense in this sector.
No, I completely agree with you. And I think that's why in India, we don't have jobs as a problem. One, we have most importantly skill as a problem. Second, we have wages as a problem still in India because we have only about 40% of the employable resources who are in formal work sector, which means we have about 11.40 crore people only in the formally employed sector. You know, out of which we have only 2.2 crore people paying taxes. Now you can imagine, and the total employable workforce is about 90 crore, which means of 90 crore that are employable, only 55 crore are employed. So look at the population, look at the percentage employable, and look at the people actually employed. Now, while I think we are at the in the best advantage, thanks to our ancestors for not controlling population. While I'm not sure how after a decade we are going to look like, but at least today we are having 65% of the population in the working age, which is the best for any country developing or other in the stage that we are today, moving from the fifth largest economy to get to the third largest. I think that's an advantage that we have. So that's a very valid point, and you mentioned it rightly, Rupesh. Let's take a quick one-liner question, and not to miss out on AI. So I'd like to have just a one-liner answer from each of the panelists on AI. Firstly, Juhi, let's hear from you. Do you see skills being impacted in the BFSI sector due to AI?
Absolutely, absolutely, Munira. I'm looking at it, and in fact, I'm seeing it now. All redundant job, the
Mhm.
ones who are repetitive in nature, transactions in nature, would get eroded away in no time. I think this AI piece will be the need of the hour, and what we would also need skills, which is towards artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, blockchain experts, data scientists, data analytics, program management, product management. Those are the kind of skill sets that will continue to evolve in an AI interface and related tech interface. And all of it that we have been talking about, the redundant roles, the repetitive roles, will go off slowly and gradually. So yes, there is a need to upskill ourselves, including ourselves, each one of us.
Absolutely. That's a valid point when you made including each one of us, because AI is irrespective of the level of job or rather the depth of the job that you do. Rahul, what are your views? If AI is going to impact skills, are we going to face a problem of job losses? Or AI is also going to create equal amount or rather maybe some percentage of jobs? What are your thoughts about it?
Uh, there will definitely be job losses
Mhm.
because AI, the aim of AI is towards improving efficiency, improving automation, right, and reducing the time to market. So it will definitely lead to a lot of job losses, but most of those will be replaced by new kind of jobs. New kind of jobs, when I say when it's Gen AI, so prompt engineering is one of the fields which is upcoming, right? Then there are fields like UI UX, understanding of customer centric behavior, creating customer personas, right? Product management skills. These are something which are growing in requirement.
Absolutely. Yeah, interesting. Rupesh, let's hear from you a little different understanding on AI. While AI is going to impact jobs, impact skills, there possibly could be some jobs replaced, which means industry segments do speak about that while AI will impact, but AI will also create a lot of jobs. From a people development standpoint, many industries and organizations are making use of AI, whether it is about the L&D, about skill development. In fact, I just recently heard about that AI will impact salary appraisals also. Do you see, BFSI as an industry using immensely AI tools to kind of scale, develop people, train them, or rather even in their normal productive, efficiency measures, AI will be introduced? What is your thought?
Uh, Absolutely. And I'll give you an example which a lot of people may or may not know is while AI was really the buzzword, one of the things which was happening on the investment and wealth side was use of what we called as advisor robo. And that is built on AI, ML, a bit of an RPA, but it's really AI and ML. Why? Because all of the investment or investment advice it has an element of emotion involved, right? So banks or the wealth organizations wanted to take that off and say, okay, if Munira wants to invest, say, 25 lakhs in something. So instead of depending on a particular person to advise her, because it will bring an element of sort of personal emotion into play, you interact with a computer which tells you, or an app which tells you how you should diversify, where you should invest, and when you should take it out, taking the emotion out of it, right? So the banks have done it for a really long time now, and long time is a relative term, of course. So that's one thing which I think a lot of sectors, industries are doing it. It's and well before it became the buzzword. That's, I think, the general embracing of new technology is an example that I can sort of refer to. And I think generally from a workforce standpoint, I think anything new like this will have a bit of a threatening element or an undertone to it. But I think it's people should see this as an opportunity, just like advent of computers were, a long time back. So it needs to be something like that where people see it as an area of opportunity and what they need to work on it, rather than feeling threatened and say, okay, this is job loss. Yes, job loss, but it's not a job loss from a long term or a medium term. It's only short term, but it's really role shifting, right? That all of you have spoken about. And I firmly believe that is happening and will continue to happen. It's not like there are no jobs,
Yeah.
but the jobs will not be of the same kind that they were yesterday or they are even today. They are definitely transitioning.
Right.
I
And
strongly believe that.
just to add on, and I'll just take a pause, I mean, and I'll give you an examples how AI has been used in our day-to-day transaction, even at work. So we have a large customer base. So, and that invites us with customer onboarding. Whenever a new customer is getting onboarded in an insurance, there is a buy and sell of insurance which is happening. And whenever there's a customer journey, this is entire AI enabled now. So we are hiring AI folks in our customer experience, in our customer onboarding, in our customer prospecting. There is a lot of demographic inputs that we have from the customers, and we have to actually make our products and make our R&D inputs basis who can be our potential prospects and what kind of a ask or product they might need from an insurance standpoint. So AI is helping us in our business standpoint, in our R&D mechanisms. And also, if I talk about human resource, we have our bot, which is helping us in screening of profiles basis the job requirement, the JD that we have. There is a profile of success which is getting created that basis this JD. These are the available talent. And out of them, this is the percentage of people who are the right fit against the JD. So that has decreased my screening time as a recruiter. And this is only possible because of the AI interface that we have in the current way of working.
Well, wonderful. I think very valid point, Juhi. And I must say that it's so much to speak about. Not just about this sector, but all the thoughts that you all three have put together for our audiences today. We've already hitting our 1 hour, and in the interest of time, we'd like to take a quick pause here and take a few questions that we have. While we have a lot of them, but we'll pick up a few selective questions that have come from the audiences, and then we'll kind of take a wrap to the session. One of the audience speaks about a question saying that you mentioned about, Juhi, the skill upskilling, reskilling while new technologies will change. As a job seeker, or rather a change that I need in my career, am I supposed to be focusing on reskilling and upskilling for new technologies, which helps me get a new career or a new job? Or am I supposed to reskill my existing know-how to meet my productivity goals? Can both coexist?
That's a very, very beautiful question. And I think that is something that even I'm asking myself that what I need to do. Now I have done quite a bit of an HR related roles. Now, what else I need to learn? Do I need to go back to coding, or do I need to probably pick up machine learning? So, yes, I think the way the job markets are evolving, I think we need to continue to pay a lot of attention to see the job trends, all right, and see what is the value proposition that each of the jobs are offering. And accordingly, I think at our individual levels, we have to actually decide for ourselves, what am I good at, right? I might not be good at machine learning. And even if I get upskilled on that, I know I'll be a disastrous resource when it comes to an AI portfolio, right? So one, of course, map it up with your current skill. see what is it that you're passionate about, and in collaboration with what is the ask of the job market. I think all three of this has to talk to each other whenever you are trying to upskill, reskill, or cross skill yourself.
Yeah. I think that's we forgot about the word cross skill. I think that's a very valid point, and that could possibly help you to both ways adapt to what you're doing currently, and at the same point in time, while Rupesh did speak about that, it's about lifelong learning as a process. It's not a one time as an activity. Great, Juhi, thank you. I hope the audience has a beautiful answer from Juhi about it. Rahul, we have a question on, you spoke about that there'll be a demand of a lot in cloud, data, analytics, and AI as roles. As a job seeker, what are the few educational degrees that I can opt for to get a job in, any one of these areas? And if I need to step in to these sectors of tech talent, yeah.
So there are multiple roles or skills which you can learn and certify yourself in. Most prominent for entry level, it is about being a cloud engineer, learning the different cloud technologies. Once you are through the journey of cloud technologies, for an aspiring developer who wants to shift to a better role or a new career role, right? For them, DevOps could be a very good choice. For
Mhm.
people who are looking at the BFSI sector and they have already worked on the infrastructure side of it, they would most likely have to focus on DevSecOps, which is a combination of DevOps as well as security operations. This is a need of the hour because of the cybersecurity challenges which are faced by organizations on a daily basis.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Rahul. That's really interesting. I hope our audience is able to kind of make a way into this skill. Our next question, I think Rupesh, you probably could answer this for us. One of the individuals from an organization speaks about saying that BFSI sector, you spoke about a lot of movement in terms of technological advancements, and this sector is already so much bashed from an aspect of regulations. Do you think with the growing advancements in technology, AI, we are more pro to more regulatory, hassles? And what is the government and organizations doing to put across a better regulatory framework?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a hassle because I think uh, the world over, whatever, I mean, if we generally call it bad elements, right? They also using technology, right? It's not like that they are living under a rock.
Right.
So people come up with innovative things, and therefore both the banks and importantly the regulators and country governments have to come up with regulations to safeguard, the people, the country, and the world. And I don't see that changing, to be very honest.
Mhm.
However smart one side becomes, the other side sort of tends to at least follow, right? If not lead. So I don't see that changing. I think one of the things which is changing a little bit on this paradigm is the regulators under or expectation from the global banks is that they need to sort of be a little more proactive rather than just waiting for a regulator to come with a regulation. KYC is probably one aspect of it where it started primarily because regulators asked the banks to do it more from a anti-money laundering related aspects. But now the expectation from the regulator is that, can you please be a little more proactive? Don't wait for a direction or a regulation or a rule from a regulator centrally or even globally, right? From the IMF and other bodies, right? FATCA and other stuff. So that I think is the change. And I'll bring back to my earlier part where I said, every single person, every single role needs to have an understanding of the technology world, right? Because if the other side is sort of very well aware, then you can't go away without knowing that aspect and sort of dealing with that or sort of competing with that, if you will, right? So that I think is changing. I don't think regulation is reducing. It will only increase, primarily because what's happening all around of us.
Yeah, interesting. Wonderful. And I think this is one of the sessions where our panelists have spoken the maximum. And I'm so happy about having this conversation with all three of you. Before we end, I have a small question since they
Munira,
are the
before you
first.
have that question, are you saying that we all three talk a lot? Thank
No,
you.
I mean, you all definitely talk a lot, but on the subject that you are one so living it, I think each day, whatever you all three have spoken is not something that was expected or rather, designed or framed to be spoken. But I think we've taken it completely from your experiences and your journeys, and that's what Team Lee's digital webinars are all about. So it's more of a takeaway for us and for the audiences. And before we kind of wrap, one small question, since we are on 1st March today, and March is considered to be a month for women's as such, and how can we end without talking about women? I have a question to all my three guests today. We are already grappling with the problem of gender diversity, diversity retention, and obviously attraction of women. As an individual in the professional community, what do you think could be the top two or the three things that today, as a community, professional community, or the industry together, should be focusing on to have a better woman retention in organizations? Just a very generic view across industry segments. So, Rupesh, we can start from you and then followed by.
Sure. And I was smiling as you were asking this question, Munira, primarily because this is one area banks have been really good at.
Yes.
I know there are certain things that we get flagged for, but diversity in our workforce generally in the banking is over a quarter across the industry, which is pretty good when you look at other white collar industries. So I think that is something banks have done reasonably well. And so is GCC. I think even the GCC space, both again talk tech and non-tech, conventional or the new age roles. There are a lot of, not lot of. There is a decent diversity or diversity which is increasing, and I think so. There are two parts, right, in terms of further increasing it. One is really at the schools and colleges level, right, in terms of STEM grads. Right. So if you're looking at more people coming into tech or new age tech related roles, we need a more diversity, more gender diversity in our schools and colleges, sort of applying for STEM role. And I already see that changing a little bit. I
Yes.
don't think it's any more a function of
I think
one's
the seats
gender.
occupied by women in engineering colleges have drastically shot up.
Yes.
And especially not just in disciplines which were then chosen. So, for example, the easiest one would be a computer science or maybe an IT. We have now mechanical, civil, and electrical being chosen by women as well.
True. And my son, he's in 10th standard, and I can already see in his class that in his age group, a lot of girls are choosing for maths and science and engineering. And if it's starting at that level, that only means good and
You've made
great
a start.
for our nation and our people. I think as an organizations, I think one of the thing is that just do away from the distinction of gender. I think sometimes this could be kind of sort of construed as organizations are favoring or otherwise, right? Is just remove that bias, right? In the sense that people feel equally empowered, right? So a lot of the time at the hiring, right? I mean, there used to be questions, especially when I started, is hey, is a lady going for marriage? Why is that a relevant question when you're not asking any other candidate, right? So on and so forth. So I
Got it.
think organizations have become more mature about this, and some of this, of course, it's a smaller percentage, maybe to do with the GCCs, maybe to do with the world global awareness. But I think it's also coming in a lot of domestic organizations, smaller organizations as well. Is and one last thing, and I know I'm talking about because I'm very passionate about some of this, is also people see it as a social cause. It's not just a social cause. There is a huge advantage from an ROI perspective if organizations think of diversity, right? So once we start looking at some of the numbers, there is a huge advantage by focusing on diversity for a business reason as well. So it's not just social in that sense. It makes all the business sense to really do that.
Wonderful, wonderful. Rahul, what would be your piece of advice to the industry about, making an effort towards women retention in organizations?
I guess Rupesh has very well answered this. I will just add to it. Tech is a field, technology is a field, where this doesn't matter much, right? Both all kinds of genders are equally balanced, have the equal kind of skill set to perform and deliver in this particular sector. So, from a tech point of view, I would say there is no definite answer for this. Rather, it is an open sector where everyone can get equal opportunities and perform. It is just about the awareness around the people who are working in organization as well as the management for the specific requirements a particular gender has, right? And addressing those requirements, creating a conducive environment for it. That is something required at organization.
Perfect. Juhi, let's hear from you. I'm sure that you'll have a very different perspective. And what would be your best advice, to the industry about making an effort towards women retention in organizations?
Sure. And also just to add on to Rupesh's point, he made a very significant point that uh, gender diversity is not just for the cause or social cause, it is also to do with the profitability of the organization. And I attended a session by Duns and Bradstreet, and there was a data survey that reflects that a marginal 10% increase in the executive level, diversity at an executive level, can lead to about 8% of profitability for the organization. And it's a huge number if you were to look at. So there is absolutely no difference of opinion that what diversity can bring on the table. And I'm sure all the organizations and industries are matured enough in order to realize that irrespective, there is no bias, there is no one is trying to establish anything who is doing a better job or something, but everybody understands what a diversity can bring on the table, not just from the overall a healthy work environment, but also from a profitability standpoint. And what organization needs to do is, of course, just not look at equality, look at equity when it comes to gender diversity. And also ensure there is a lot of facilitation that needs to be given because in India, demographically, if we talk about our country, there is a lot of fallout that happens of women workforce immediately once they are on their maternity wave. So there is a lot of social support that I think the overall organization, because we all are from the organization, and towards our home we have a family to take care, and this is and I would say a request also to all the male folks is in terms of we have to ensure that we also play our roles even at homes because if we support our family well, even at the other side of the gender, we will ensure there's less fallout which is happening towards the second inning of a woman, and we have more comebacks happening more from a second inning. So from an organization standpoint, we have a lot of second inning programs for women, wherein we are trying to attract people who have had their career gaps because of their maternity way or something that happened in their life. So we had a second inning program for our organization also. And the organizations have to ensure and invest a lot of friendly policy for a diverse workforce so that they are able to have a right balance between their family and workplace, because India will take some more time to be more mature and more acceptable that raising a kid, for an example, is a gender agnostic role. And that's when the request to the larger folks goes that let's do it, let's make it happen so that we have less fallouts happening because of family planning or otherwise. Yeah.
I completely agree. And on that note, I have one last request for all the women out there. It's okay to just be. I don't think that we can be best or rather compete or rather be in the forefront at all areas. So it's absolutely okay to be good at few things and not good at few things on each of the days as you take life. We wear different hats, and it's fine to be competing in one area and not the other. So I think a request to all the women, and no better than this day to speak about it. It's absolutely okay.
Very well said, Mira. I fully agree.
Yeah. So on that note, thank you very much to all our guests. It has been an amazing session. I don't think we have covered everything, but we tried to cover the best. You all have touched upon very important and significant points. I'm sure our audiences have taken advantage of the same. Those of who you could not join us, please visit Team Leads Digital on our website, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube for the recorded session available. And we come back to you soon with another interesting topic. Till then, thank you, everyone. Have a great day and a great evening.
Thank you, Munira. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rupesh. Thank you,
Thanks, Mira.
everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guests.